YouTube video that people made of clips and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay. So we're ready to start.
culture and really learning about how we interact with others in a way that gives them honor and gives them dignity. Koen is, we're proud to say, our board member, and he's also the cultural coordinator at Mesa County, as well as a national speaker. I don't know if you're international. Well,
I've been to Canada, so that makes me
Welcome, Andre. Thanks, guys.
Well, my name is Andre Koen. You will probably know more about me than you probably want to by the time we're done, so I won't give all of my story right now. I'll break it up into smaller parts. I am the cultural coordinator for Anoka County, so that makes me sound like I'm Julie McCoy from The Love Boat. And I'm glad some of you laugh because you know what I'm talking about. There's tons of people in here who are laughing at politeness, they have no idea what we're talking about. But it makes it sound like I'm a curator or something like that, when in fact what we've done at the county is we redefined diversity, because prior to that I was a diversity coordinator, and we find that the word diversity is problematic, and it's mostly problematic because nobody knows what that means. Right? So if I ask 100 people what diversity means, how many answers would I get? Yeah, our attorneys say 200, right? And it means so many different things to so many different people that it's kind of lost any meaning at all. And so, I was a classroom teacher for 8 years. I taught junior high and high school. The junior highers almost killed me. And it wasn't really them, it's more their hormones, because I'm talking to them, but all they hear is, But if I give a math test, and I ask you on the math test, 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? Unless it's some kind of new math, all of you will give me that answer as 4, and I will see that on the test and say that that is correct. But if I give you a math problem and I say, 4 plus 4 equals, and you all give me different answers, it's really not your fault. It's my fault as the teacher. There's something that I missed that you all don't get the same answer. And so, diversity is something that we try to work with in a different way in Anoka County, because it's been problematic. How many people have been to a diversity training before? Okay, I have a lot of people to help. Hopefully that can heal all of you who raised your hands. Because typically, those of you who haven't been to diversity trainings, you're probably very lucky. Because typically, the diversity trainings are done in such a way that if you weren't racist before you came, you definitely understood the cause and why you might want to be after the trainings. And there are three reasons typically that people do some of these diversity trainings. One is that in organizations, they go to a conference or something and they hear a speaker and they get really excited. In the words of my father, they would get saved. And so they would see the light and the error of their ways. And so they come back to all of their coworkers and the people under them and make them go through the same kind of training. And that's not always effective. Because what happens when you force people into doing things? They don't want to hear it, right? So mandating training is not necessarily the way to go, although I will take a mandated audience, but we'll talk about that as well. The second reason that they typically do these trainings, or why trainings typically go bad, is because there's typically one person who messed up in the organization, and instead of being brave and talking to that one person, they bring everybody together so that we can talk about this so we don't make that one person feel bad. The problem typically is that one person doesn't get it in the first place, and they certainly don't get it now. And they're like, who are they talking about? Why are we doing this? And then the third reason why diversity training typically is problematic is because the trainers themselves. They come in on a white horse and a mightier than thou platform, and they have all their things together, and so we need to fix each and every one of you. And so I would like to say, hopefully, in our interaction, you won't necessarily see any of those three things show up in this training. And I know that you all have experiences, varied experiences, but I want to talk about those. But I also want to talk about how we can have some common languages, some common ways of thinking about diversity issues. Now, I will tell you, and some of you may be surprised to know this, I am black. Yes, it's true. I know. I was surprised too, right?
What gave it away from you as a pencil?
Oh, the pencil in my hair gave it away, right? I actually forgot about that. So, and the reason I say that, and I'm not trying to be flippant or insult your intelligence or anything like that, but oftentimes people, before I was black, I was human. Before I was black, I was human. And oftentimes people forget that part of who we are. I became black after I got my humanity. And actually, other people made me black, but we'll talk about that as well. And so, a lot of the things that I want to share with you, I want you to look through the lens of not from a black man's perspective, or how many people consider themselves white? Raise your hand if you consider yourself white. Right. Not from a white perspective, not from an Asian perspective, but really from a human perspective. All right? So I want you to put on your human lens, and then we'll talk about those other lenses that we have to deal with as well. Do all of you know each other? Are you familiar with each other at all? Have you been there? Okay, you're getting there? Okay, so you've been through sessions together? All right, cool. So we'll go ahead and keep moving. Technology is great when it works. All right. Move forward. Or not? Okay. So we're going to talk about a concept called Diversity 101, a new paradigm. And what is a paradigm? Have you heard that word before? Paradigm. Structure. Okay. Paradigm. Not 4 nickels. Paradigm. A paradigm simply is the way you see the world, all right? It's the way you see the world. And you may want to write that down. We'll come back to that concept. The way you see the world. And the way you see the world will dictate what it is that you're able to see. All right? So we'll come back to this concept, paradigm. So I'm going to show a quick video. And in this video, I want you to tell me what happens or what you see happening in this video. So, see what's happening. Has anyone seen this before? Okay, America's Funniest Videos or something like that. So what's happening? He's trying to get attention. All right, what's that? Okay, so he wants attention. He's trying to get attention. What else? Yes.
It's probably like a learned behavior, but before he sits with him, they probably explained and figured out what he was doing.
Okay, so it's probably a learned behavior. All right, what else do you see happening?
Neglect.
Neglect? Okay.
All right, let's just keep on walking around. Obviously, he wants something.
Okay. All right, other
At
stuff.
some point, it felt like torture.
At some point it felt like torture. Okay.
The dog was really listening.
The dog is I personally think the dog is the funniest thing in the whole video. You know, that is so funny.
Another perception could be that he's scared.
He could be scared.
Another perception because every time he turns, like he goes looking for it, and as soon as he sees something, he starts crying. So to somebody else looking, they could think that every time he comes around the corner, he looks at it.
Okay.
Maybe he's scared.
Okay, so he could be scared. All right. What else? Okay, so he's trying to find that safe space, mom, or protection. Other folks. Needs to be validated. Okay. Okay. So we see what is going on, and we'll dissect this in just a little bit. But I'm more concerned not so much with what is going on, but why he's behaving this way. And so we address some of those things, that he might be looking for attention. He may be, looking for his protection. Some of those things. Any other ideas about why he might be behaving this way? He could be tired. Okay. Can we make it? Is this his first time behaving this way? No, probably. Is it maybe his second? Probably not his second. Go ahead. Could he be jealous of the dog? Okay,
I wonder
possibly.
if he's learning manipulation at that young age.
Okay, so it's amazing that he's learning manipulation at that young age. Yes,
I
ma'am.
think he probably always got reinforced. He just did the way he's agitated and have to quit. And so what they're trying to do is condition him to do that.
Okay. So how's that working?
It gets worse before it gets better.
So first of all,
working right
so let's talk about I want to go back to your point. What's your name, ma'am?
Sarah?
Sarah. We go back to Sarah's point. So when we see this kind of stuff, we have to ask the question, why are they behaving that way? And it is clear why he's behaving that way. Why? Because it works. Because it works. And, or at least, okay, so we're really smart human beings, right? So at some point he learned that if he fell out like that, what happens when I fall out like that? Somebody would come get me. So I do that behavior, and then I get what I want, which is attention or safety or whatever. And so since it worked once, or it had a pattern of working, as a human being, it worked in that particular situation. If given similar situations, can I make the assumption that it will work in the future? Yeah, right? So it worked in my present. I can think back into the past and remember the last time it worked, and so I can make the assumption that it will work in the future. Because it worked now, it worked in the past, so I can assume it'll work in the future. So, when will this child stop falling on the ground? There's two times when he'll stop falling on the ground as a pattern of learned behavior. When will that occur? What's that? When no one's there, he'll stop. If somebody would come and get him, okay? So if he achieved his, what? Goal, he would stop. When else will he stop?
When he gets exhausted.
When he gets exhausted? Go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, when he's old enough for like, have a mature conversation with why he can't be doing the plan, or if
Okay.
they yell at him for stuff to stop doing it.
Okay. Yes,
When
ma'am.
it doesn't work.
When it no longer works, is what she says. Is that true?
Maybe. Not always.
Is it working now? No.
Time, it takes time.
Who knows that it's not working?
He does.
Does he know that? Who knows that it's not working? Who's making fun of him because they know that his behavior doesn't work? The dog is making fun of him, right? The parents are making fun of him because they know that this behavior no longer works. The game is up. They've got him pegged. But what's the problem? Who doesn't know yet that his behavior doesn't work? Who doesn't know? The kid, the child, right?
I think he does to a certain extent, because when his mom's out of his sight, he quits, and then he gets up and goes looking for his mom so he can throw himself at her feet.
And so, when will he stop throwing himself at his mom's feet? When he learns that that behavior no longer works. You know, he could be 35 before he learns that. We hope not. But that's when he'll learn that new behavior, right? That's when he'll learn that this behavior no longer works, and I got to get a new set of tools. All right. So that leads me to some basic premises of kind of the work that I do, and I believe that people can learn, change, and grow. That it's a life learning process, and who I am today does not dictate who I have to be tomorrow. It's all the decisions that I make from here forward that dictate my future. I also like to talk about we can be disconnected from our past. Our past does not have to be a roadmap to our future. All right, we get to make those decisions every day. If you have okay credit, but you want to have excellent credit, when did you start having excellent credit? From the day you pay your bill on time forward, right? So that's when you start having good credit. All human behavior is goal-directed. Everything that we do is directed towards some kind of goal. There's something that we're trying to accomplish or reach. All right? And people do what makes sense to them, even if it doesn't make sense to who? To other people. Right? So even if it doesn't make sense to you, they're doing things that make sense to them. All right? And lastly, attitude is a response to a goal. What have you been taught about what an attitude is? Have you been told you have an attitude? Ever?
No, but I tell my 16-year-old.
You tell your 16-year-old all the time, right? So what are you talking about when you say that? You think it has a negative connotation? Okay. Okay, you think of it as a negative thing. What are you talking about when you're talking
Bad
about
attitude when I ask her to do things around the house. She whines and goes like that because she doesn't want to do the kitchen because her 12-year-old and 7-year-old siblings don't have to do the kitchen, blah, 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 whatever. But she thinks she can have an iPhone because she's 16 and she does.
Okay.
I said, well, if you want your brother to do the same chores as you do, should I give him an iPhone? Well, no way, that's not fair. You know, that kind of.
Does she do the head bobbing thing too?
She rolls her eyes.
Rolls her eyes. Okay. Because I saw you do it. I was like, ooh.
Oh. She has an attitude.
She has an attitude.
Wonder where she gets it from.
Yeah. So attitude. And typically what we've talked about in terms of attitude, that it's some kind of emotional response to external stimuli, right? My parents would say things like, fix your face. Boy, you better fix your attitude. Go to your room till you learn how to act. And I remember one time they said that, and I was in my room for a while, and then I stepped out into the hallway and I said, "To be or not to be?" I spent a lot of time in my room. Because that's not what they were talking about. What were they talking about in terms of an attitude? My behavior. That's the thing that they were talking about. But it was really tricky for me because they did say that I had a lot of attitude, and I never quite understood what they meant or what they were talking about. And then one day it clicked for me. All right. So my dad is a pastor, and growing up, I was a preacher's kid kind of thing. And on Sunday, we would go to church from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. We stopped at 3 o'clock for chicken, not because we're black, but because chicken is delicious. So Sunday all day is church. All right? So I asked my dad to borrow the car Friday night. And what does my dad say because he loves me? He says, yes, he loves me. Right? So he tosses me the keys. I go hang out with my friends. I put gas in the car. I clean the car up. So my dad says I have what kind of an attitude? I have a good attitude, right? And I say my dad has what kind of an attitude? A good attitude. All right? So Sunday comes along, and my best friend Dexter calls, and he says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies at noon? What do I know about Sundays? Church all day. But I'm feeling gutsy, so I go up to my dad, and I say, Dad, can I borrow the car? And what does my dad say? No. Not only does he say no, but he gives me a lecture about how I'm leading people to hell. Right? And every negative consequence in my family was hell. And either you were going to go there on your own, or he was going to send you, right? And so I say my dad has what kind of an attitude? A bad attitude. Consequently, what does he say about my attitude? That I also have a bad attitude. So what is it that actually determines one's attitude? The other person's perception. If your goals are being met. If you get what you want, you have what kind of attitude? A good attitude. When you're not getting what you want, you have what kind of an attitude? A bad attitude. Just think about a teenager. Think about yourself, right? I mean, as a teenager, when you got what you wanted, it's almost as if you purred like a cat, right? You wanted to cuddle next to that person. You're like, oh, I love you, mommy, you know. But when you're denied what you want, when you aren't able to accomplish your goals, I don't know about you, but teenagers can be the funkiest attitude-having people you ever want to know, right? You're just like, ooh, I raised you? Who are you? Right? So what is it that you know about a person who has a negative attitude? What's the one thing that you know for sure about them? That they're not meeting their goal, right? So if you experience a person with a bad attitude, there's one thing you know for sure, which is that they're not reaching their goal. Which means that you now move into a two-part intervention, if you will, right? So your first job in trying to help them or work with them is to do what with them? My first objective is to help them reach their goal, right? Because if I can help them reach their goal, then they will have a good attitude. If their goal is not reasonable or if it's not rational or achievable, then my second job or my second duty is to do what? Do I change people's goals? No.
Help them redefine.
I help them redefine their goal. I help them change their goals, right? And so that's how we explain some of our approach. Does that make sense at all? Okay, cool. No, blah, blah, blah. You don't need all that. You don't need that either. You don't need that. Don't need that. Yeah, we'll do this real quick. All right, so first of all, I need to clear the air or the board on diversity. So these are some of the things that diversity is not, and then I'm going to give you a definition of diversity. First, diversity is not political correctness. What is political correctness? Somebody, did you hear that? Somebody said,
I like that.
What's political correctness?
Be careful what you say around certain cultures.
Okay, being careful what you say around certain cultures. Yes, ma'am.
Like what people think is acceptable.
Okay, what people think.
Society.
What people think is acceptable in society. Political correctness. Raise your hand if you've at least heard the term before. Political correctness. Okay, good.
Is that personal computer?
Does it stand for personal computer? Okay. Yeah, okay, that was a bad joke. Don't.
I mean, how do you put that?
We'll work on the timing. So PCs used to mean personal computing, and now it means this, right? And so, how come people aren't really excited about telling me what that means? You've experienced it, you've talked about it. When I mentioned it, people, eyes were rolling, body language was like...
Because the definition of political correctness changes with each person, and the views that that person holds. So
Okay.
what might be politically correct in one scenario is entirely different in another scenario. So we all walk around acting like we know what the hell it is when really nobody does.
Okay, so we act like we know what it is when nobody really does know what it is, right? Yes, ma'am.
And it generalizes a lot, like different populations in one case may think that all of people want to be called that certain thing, but really each individual wants to be called what they want to be called.
Okay.
Or referred to.
Yeah.
My daughter's boyfriend is half black. I called him mulatto.
Oh,
And I know. I was like, I thought it would be politically correct. She's like, Mom, don't ever say that. And Tyra was like, just call me black.
we should be calling like octoroon, you know. Anyway.
They've been on for 3 years. We're good now.
Oh, okay.
Because it means something different to the other person.
Okay, good. All right. No, but political correctness is problematic for all those things, those reasons that you just talked about. And it's so funny. I was doing a training at the county, and a woman stands up and she says, "Andre, I just want to know why all the colored people are moving into my neighborhood." Right? How did the audience respond? Do you think? Yeah, kind of like that, right? And so I'm standing there, and I'm looking at her, and now they're looking at me, right? They're like, "Get her! Get her!" So I'm standing there, but there are some things that I notice about her. Like, I noticed that it's clear that she does not have a lot of stamps in her passport. Right? It's clear that she didn't go to Ivy League schools and have, this fancy lexicon and all this kind of stuff. And so when she stood there, what I saw in her was this pure question that came from a pure heart. And so as the facilitator and as a teacher, what do you think my responsibility was to her? Treat her with respect. Answer her question. And so I answered her question. I can coach her later on the political correctness stuff and take her aside and we can talk about words to use and all that kind of stuff. But I had to respect and honor her for standing up and asking a question that other people also had in the room but were not brave enough to ask themselves. So political correctness is not about diversity, because I've also had conversations with people who had the right words, but as you're talking to them, your skin just crawls. Because you can just hear the nastiness in their heart and in their words, right? So it's not about political correctness. It's also not about black and white, and I mean both the racial construct that we've created as well as the metaphor itself. Diversity is not just as simple as this or that. It is about how we work together and come to consensus together. Diversity is also not about blame, fault, and guilt. Babies do not care who changes them. Right? If you change a baby, they are just as happy and delightful as they want to be. A lot of times in diversity trainings, we spend a lot of time assigning blame or feeling guilty or finding fault with individuals when, in fact, none of us set up the structures that we're living in today, right? So raise your hand if you were on the committee to set up racism. Okay, good. Right? So none of us set this stuff up, but we now have the responsibility of doing something about these systems. Right? Diversity is also not therapy. A lot of times in the trainings that I've been in, the trainer feels like they haven't done their job until they get someone to cry. right? Or people share their war stories, their horror stories of, times when bad things happen to them, and then the stories just keep escalating, and, and then there are those people who haven't had those experiences, and we're like, wow, that's kind of weird, So it's not about therapy. It's also not about meritocracy. Do you know that concept, meritocracy? What's a root word that you recognize in there? Merit, right? Yeah. So meritocracy means that if you work hard enough, you can achieve just as I have achieved. If you work hard enough, you can be just like me. What's the problem with that concept? Not only is it a myth, what else is it? It assumes that I am the measurement of all that is good, right? I mean, it would be a shame for LeBron James to be forced to play basketball the way I do, right? So it's not about meritocracy. If I work hard enough, what makes you the measure? Why would I want to be like you? Why can't I just be me and have a good life? And so it's not about meritocracy, working to be something. And lastly, diversity is not about tolerance. And I know people get nervous when I start talking about that because they've been taught that diversity is about tolerance. Anyone been taught that? Right? We have to tolerate people. Let's be more tolerant. What's the problem with tolerance? What does tolerance mean? To put up with. Right? It means to put up with. Now, my brother-in-law came to visit, and I tolerated that dude. Why? I knew when he was going home. When we talk about tolerance, what we're actually saying is, I can put up with this until when? I don't have to, right? And so are our communities getting less diverse? No. Our human relationships are getting more complex every day. And so to use tolerance as our measurement for diversity is a little bit antiquated and doesn't articulate what we really need and want in our society. Because to be quite frank, I'm not going anywhere, except for maybe Sweden when I retire. It's so clean there. And so diversity is not political correctness. It's not about black and white. It's not blame, fault, or guilt, therapy, meritocracy, or tolerance. So, Andre, you just shared what diversity is not. Do you have anything to tell us about what it is? As a matter of fact, I do. All right? So, and I like to think of diversity using this phrase, that there is dignity and honor in being human. All right? What is dignity? What is dignity? How would you define dignity? Pride. Okay. Dignity. Respect. Okay. Is dignity something that you have or something that you give? It is in fact both, right? One of the things, and I'm sure you've encountered these people throughout the Twin Cities. They usually are on the highway ramps, and they have cardboard signs that say, "We'll work for blah, 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 blah," right? And typically, what are some other things that they ask for? What are they asking for with those signs? Money, okay. Work. Food. Okay. Transportation. All right. Diapers. Okay. Cool. So I see those people, and I'm a compassionate person. And so what do you think I give them? Food? Money? Yeah, I'm not giving up no money. I work for the government, okay? I know there's plenty of systems that we can plug them into. No, I don't give people.
Resource guide.
I do human resource guide from time to time. Are you in the county? No, okay, because I do have a resource guide in my car. Hard. It's so funny. This young lady had to be probably 18 or so, and she came and knocked on my door, and she had on these little shorts that were rolled up, like to here, a little tank top, and she came and rang my doorbell, and I was a nightmare for her, because she said to me, she had a piece of paper in an envelope, and she came to the door and she said, I'm collecting some money for charity. And I said, really? Because it was an odd time. It was just odd, an odd time of the day. And I said, well, what is this charity? And she said, well, my rent is due at the end of the month, and no, seriously. And so she gave me this long story. And I looked at her and I said, honey, you should not be doing this, right? And I'm going to say that I'm not, whatever. Pretty little white girl going door to door, asking for money in little shorts and a tank top. That's not something she should be doing, right? So I talked to her and I said, well, tell me what your situation is. She said, my social worker this and that. I said, well, what county are you in Anoka County or are you in Ramsey County? Because she's in Anoka County. I was about to get her because I know everybody in Anoka County, right? So I said, are you in Anoka County or Ramsey County? And she said, I'm in Ramsey County. And I said, okay, I don't really know anybody there, but I can look her up. I said, well, I tell you what, I'm not giving you any money. As a matter of fact, you need to go home. And if you're in real dire straits, have your social worker call me tomorrow. This was a Sunday afternoon. I said, here's my number, and here's my card. I had a card like this, like one of these. They had my face on it and stuff. And so I put the number and all that kind of stuff, gave it to her, and I told her to, have her social worker call me because we need to get her some assistance and some help if she's really in trouble. Monday morning, guess what didn't happen? No call, and I had to, in hindsight, I probably should have looked around to see who was with her, because there's no way would any of you go door to door by yourself in little shorts and a little top asking for money. So, I knew there was something wrong with that. And so one of the things that I do for people is that I give them dignity. And the way that I give them dignity, because I think that's worth more than the dollars that I can give folks, is that I recognize that they exist and that they have the right to exist. And so when I see those people on the side of the roads with the signs, or I see panhandlers, I make eye contact. And I say hello. And if I have time, I'll ask them their story, or I engage them in some kind of conversation. Because it's my belief that part of the reason they're in their situation is because they don't believe that we see them, that they've become invisible. So you can give dignity to people just by being nice. Right? What is honor? It's respect, okay? Honor. High worth, okay? Who have we said in our society that we will give honor to? Soldiers, okay? So servicemen and women who fight on our behalf, we say that we'll give honor to, which means that we'll give them respect at a high level, right? Our grandparents, our foreparents, all those people who have done things on our behalf that we couldn't necessarily do ourselves, we said we'll give high respect to or honor. So I have this next question. Please raise your hand if you can say yes to these next two questions. Raise your hand if you either purchased a ticket or you passed a test that made you eligible to be born on this planet. None of us have done anything to bring ourselves here. We accepted an invitation. I don't want to think about how that invitation came. That's disgusting. But we all accepted an invitation, and we're all trying to figure out what it means to be here and what our purpose is. Now, one of the things that it's funny, my sister is an RN, and she was talking about birth. And I don't know if you were, I'm sure in health class you talked about, the reproductive process in the system and all that kind of stuff, and the egg and the sperm and all that kind of, I don't want to creep anybody out or anything. But in talking with my sister, who's an RN, she was actually telling me some things that I hadn't thought about before. And that our bodies have antibodies, right, that fight off germs and infections. And so when, before that sperm actually makes it to the egg, it has to battle the body's internal antibodies. And so hundreds of thousands of those cats aren't making it. They're getting slaughtered. And that numerically, it is a miracle that any of those sperm actually get to the egg. Like mathematically, it shouldn't happen, but it does. And I have to believe that each one of us has been created for some purpose, for some reason. And part of our job is to try to figure out what that purpose and reason is. And so it's important that we figure out what it means to be human. Now, human, I was very interested to understand, or to look up and find a definition. What I found was that it has two definitions. One is the noun, Homo sapiens sapien, the one who knows that they exist. To have two legs, opposable thumb, a big brain, and a belly button. If you ever encounter a person without a belly button, be concerned. All right? Human. But human is also an adjective. And what do adjectives do? They describe. And so what is it that we teach our sons and daughters, nephews and nieces, and greats and grands? What do we teach them about what it means to be human? Okay, to honor and respect. Okay. To care about other people. Treat us the way you want to be treated. Treat others the way they want to be treated. I heard something over here. Trust. Okay. To be proud of who they are, right? To be proud of who they are. What it means to be human. Now, what I want you to think about is, what would your life be like if everyone around you gave you dignity and honor for being human, not because you had the right hair color, the right body shape, the right ethnic background or socioeconomic stuff? What would your life be like if everyone gave you dignity and honor?
A bit smoother.
It would be a bit smoother. What kind of person would you be? It would be easier to have a positive attitude all the time.
Confident.
You'd be confident. What else?
Carry yourself.
You would carry yourself with dignity and honor.
Treat others that way too.
You would treat others that way too. All right? The folks that we have in these four walls, in some way, have been denied this, or people have tried to take this away from them. Right? We live in a system that constantly is bombarding us to try to strip away these pieces of who we are. Do you know what that system is called? It starts with capitalism and lism. It's called capitalism. If I can make you feel really crappy about yourself in any of these areas, you will come to me to buy the answer. Right? And so part of, and it's funny because sometimes people will volunteer here and they say, well, I've never been in a domestic violence situation. I don't know what to say to people. I don't know what to do to people. I don't know what I can offer them. I remember when I was in St. Louis, Missouri, working for a youth leadership camp, and we were going to start doing some things in Southern California with some of the gangs and stuff. And I went to my boss because I grew up in Ohio, and you know we had the only gang we knew was a bunch of kids from the project. Now the projects aren't like projects in like Chicago or New York. This was just like you know they had litter in their front yard, kind of bad situation. And they were called the DeSoto Bass Killers. You know that was the gang. You know it was just a bunch of kids who littered. You know, that's what I had to deal with. So I said, you know, we're going to Southern California. What can I offer these folks? I don't know anything about gangs. I don't know anything about, colors and all this kind of stuff. And my mentor at the time just kind of laughed at me and he said, Andre, go there and be you. Show them something different. And so when we interact with folks in these four walls, the greatest gift that we can give them is dignity and honor and being who they are. Sometimes I don't know, have you seen the movie What Dreams May Come? See that movie. It's a great movie. Absolutely fabulous movie. I will tell you that at the end of the movie, the protagonist figures out that he's been, he's trying to be strong all this time, and he's trying to, keep his family together when all he needed to do was just sit and be with his wife. And sometimes we try to be so strong for folks when all we need to do is just sit and be and give folks dignity and honor and being human. All right? So that's that. We'll go 5 more minutes, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll kick into more active stuff. Sorry for all this sitting. Has this been helpful so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
In the context of what we're in? Okay, cool. No, we won't do that. We won't do that. We won't do that. Yeah, we won't do that either. We will do this. So we'll do this and then we'll take a break. So before I use the word paradigm. Paradigm is the way you see the world. And the way you see the world is extremely important in terms of what you will be able to see. All right? So I have cards in front of you. So paradigms, the way you see the world is important to what you see. So on your card, you see the front side that looks like this. What I'd like for you to do is, I'd like for you to place a plus where you've learned something positive about a group of people. So these groups here, the groups in light blue, have tried to teach you something about these groups. Whether you learned it or not, whether they had a formal curriculum or not, it's not the question. But what were some of the messages or the things they were trying to tell you about these other groups? And so what I'd like for you to do is to put a plus where you've learned something positive, a minus where you've learned something negative about one of these groups across the top in gray, or a 0 where you've learned or they didn't teach you anything about them. You can have pluses and minuses in the same section, but the size of your plus and the size of your minus tell us how much you learned. All right? So a big plus means you learned a lot. A little plus means you learned a little. A big minus means you learned a lot. A little minus means you learned a little. All right? The cards do take a bit of tenacity, so take your time in doing them, and you just want to, even if you just scratch something in so you recognize what it is, that's sufficient. Okay? So pluses, minuses, and zeros. So for example, from parents and family, what did I learn about African Americans? From parents and family, what did I learn about disabled Americans? From TV and movies, what did I learn about disabled Americans? All right? So if you could, just fill those out. And I will make sure that this is not a permanent marker. like for you to stop where you are. I'm not so much interested about, well, actually, what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to talk in threes or pairs, whatever makes sense at your table. Talk about the card and some of the things that you put on your card. All right. So talk with a partner about your card, some of your thoughts, feelings, that kind of stuff. All right. So we'll take about 5 minutes to do that. Thanks. I'd like for you to stop right there. Thank you so much for sharing with each other. I appreciate that. Were there any highlights or things that you heard as you were sharing your experiences with other people? Were there anything things that you thought were important to mention? Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
We both talked about how in the TV, movies, and media, there's a lot of things that people are all
Yeah.
and a lot of times that's the only opinions that they have is
Yeah. Anyone else find that to be true as well?
Yes.
That TV and movies
From a
really
very
taught
young
people about.
age.
Okay, at a very young age.
Yes.
Okay.
And that gets reinforced into adulthood.
Okay.
Do you think that's changing?
Do I think that that's changing, though? What do you guys think? Do you think it's changing? That we're seeing better stereotypes? A little? Okay. It depends on what you watch.
I
Okay.
can only believe it because we got kind of controlling like different cultures and aspects of disabilities and stuff like that. Celebrate the fact that there's not.
Okay, so Glee celebrate stuff? Okay. I watched The Hills myself. I didn't think that. No. Drop Dead Diva? Anyone? No? Anyway. doing so well. I'll leave the jokes to you. Anything else that's worth consideration? Yes,
I've
ma'am.
noticed that with art, which is also kind of grown up in a specific way. Like she grew up in a black community and other communities like white. And she grew up in, you know, Sweden. And multicultural education. I mean, he never really got outside of that and culture.
That's right.
Except that I grew up in Senegal, and in Senegal, we always recognized that everyone was different. And we celebrated that, really. And when I first came to the States, it really irritated me, actually. The Americans would say, so what's your race? And I'd say, I'm Eurasian. And they're like, what is that in the world? And I'm like, Eurasian, that's European and Asian mix. And then they're like, yeah, but what country? I said, then ask me what my nationality is. There's a difference. And in our ID cards, there was nationality and there was race. And so we always grew up like that. We went to school with my Chinese friend, my Malay friend, my Indian friend. We had so much mixture. We went to each other's homes for our special occasions. We spoke different languages, and we spoke a common language. We ate different foods. We ate common foods. So when I came to the States, I remember just realizing what a melting pot at that time, in the 80s even, it was. And then there really was such a huge difference. But through the years, I've kind of seen maybe a more openness, and more people just have changed. You know, there's more of a maybe an open mind.
Yeah. And what I will say is that what you look for, you will find.
I think a lot of people have that question out of curiosity because so many of us have grown up so isolated, especially living in Minnesota, where it's like, you know, we've got Asian. I grew up in a really small town, so we had like maybe one black kid who was adopted and a couple of kids that were half Asian, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more of a curiosity thing when people actually sometimes it's rude.
I don't mind the question, but to me it was like I realized the definition of the word, that was it. You know, so when you ask me who I am, I tell you where I come from, but who I am, that is only a part. You know, it would be like now people would say, I don't know in fact whether you would say I'm black, but I'm American. So if you went overseas and somebody asked you where you're from, you would say that. Immediately they know what your background is and what country.
I have to tell you, I had the rudest awakening when I went to Egypt. I went to Egypt, and people would ask, what would they say? They would say, oh, you're an American. I'm like, no, I'm black. They're like, no, you're an American. And I'm like, yeah, I am an American. Now that I think about it, you're right. I'm an American, right? The racial distinctions that we make here show up differently when we go other places. What it means to be, you know, in Argentina, a white person can be almost as brown as I am, but they're white as opposed to being native, an Indian, right? And so this concept of what race is very interesting because it's something that we made up. Which, yes, ma'am.
I have a 7-year-old daughter who's Korean, and we've had her since she was 5 months old. So she's basically growing up American. But we had prepared for questions that she's going to get asked me when she's older. And when she opens up her mouth to speak, she's going to have a Minnesotan accent. People are going to go, you may say something like, oh, well, you're American. They're going to go, well, it doesn't matter if she was born here or came here at 5 months or came here at 10 years. She's still an American no matter what. But they have to be ready for people to say, oh, I didn't know you were going to speak English. You know, whatever.
Remember when I said earlier, when I was born, I was human. And people made me black. Right? It's funny, people talk about our current president, President Obama. They say, well, why does he claim his white part? Well, no, seriously, he's half white and half black, and people typically describe him as being black. But even if he wanted to say, I'm mostly white, what would folks say? Like, no, you're not. You're black. Look at you. Everybody can see it, right? So when we talk about this concept of dignity, honor, and being human, when we look at the messages that have been taught, all of these things are not our fault, but they are our responsibility. How many people have ever driven a car? Okay. Does that car have blind spots?
Yes. No.
Where are they typically? Where are the blind spots? Okay, you want to be
The
smart.
car doesn't.
Okay, she's like, the car doesn't have blind spots, we do. Have you ever been in a car that didn't have a blind spot? Have you ever been in one that didn't have a blind spot? No, a truck that didn't have a blind spot. So, yeah, so they don't have blind spots, we do, right? But is that your fault? Were you on the design team of the car that you drive? No. So it's not your fault. But it is now your what? Your responsibility. And there are two ways to find your blind spots. One is to look for them. And the other is to what? Crash into something. Oh, I didn't even see that. That's what that was. All right. So let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more activities and that kind of stuff. So thank you so much.
I thought you meant blind spots, you probably have to use that test for your